Footy and Frothies, third show this week. Get to spend an evening with you fine gentlemen again. Barney, Oli and Daggy with you to look back on Origin at number 1. It's in the books, as well as look forward to round 14 of the National Rugby League in season 2022. How'd you gentlemen enjoy Origin night, Oliver?
It was all right. It was pretty good. Sorry, I'm not doing it a great service. It was the
was all right.
most exhilarating game of professional rugby league I've ever watched in my entire life. Nothing will ever top it, and it will go down in history as the greatest footballing event, sporting event, really, in history.
Stupendous.
Yes.
Barn?
One of the better games I've seen this year, I think. High up tempo, lots of intensity. They've got a little bit sloppy in the middle of the match, sort of just each side of half time. But I thought it was a pretty entertaining game of footy. What about yourself, mate?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, just watched nothing special going on with all being isolated and shit. But it was a very good game of footy. I enjoyed it. I was happy. I watched it with a smile on my face. I had one revelation throughout the game, and that is, yes, I follow New South Wales, but all my favourite players play for Queensland. I think if I was going to make a list, Harry and Pat and even Tino and even some that aren't there are all Queenslanders. So, all his favourite non-Tigers players, of course. But a very good game of football. I want to just make a point quickly before we get into we might as well get straight into the pop analysis. We talked shit earlier in the week, so I want to make a point quickly because I made the mistake of reading social media posts and
what'd you do that for?
Yeah, I regretted it straight away. Apparently it's all the referee's fault and no one's ever accountable, and it must be the officials and the NRL scheming and all this sort of stuff. But in fact, I thought it was the best officiated game all year. I go on record as saying that. It was allowed to happen the way it happened. Momentum was allowed to shift naturally. And the referee and the bunker didn't interfere. And that's all we want from a rugby league, I think. If we got games like this every game, I would be pretty happy. They're only human after all. But I know the reason we don't is because if they did officiate like this, all the shit teams would get beaten by 60 every week. And we can't have that either because the clubs and the boards can't be held accountable for their own team's performances. But anyway, what do you like to think of that first of all?
Well, I thought that was a very lovely script you read off of, and the NRL's done good to invest heavily in you in particular, of course.
Thank you. They brought me to say.
Yeah, of course there were contentious decisions that people are blowing up about, but I feel like for the most part, those were sort of contentious. There wasn't too much, I'd say, sort of cut and dry, absolute, absolute gaffes, really. But again, you get that with Origin, and we obviously get it a lot of the time in rugby league. But I have to agree, I thought the officiating was fine. I overly don't really think it had too much of a negative impact on the result.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. Both yous. There was a couple of 50-50 calls, but they're 50-50 calls, and they're called that for a reason because they could go either way realistically. You always know that they try to let the game flow during Origin, and I think they did a pretty good job to let the teams work out who was a better team at the end of the night. I was actually surprised by a few of the comments from the New South Wales coach, but yeah.
Can't be his fault that he picked the wrong team. We'll talk about the game and we'll talk about the fallout, I suppose. It makes a logical sense. 16-10, Queensland beat New South Wales. Have you done the stats for this, Barn? It felt like a game where for most of the game, I didn't think New South Wales had any chance of scoring more than 10 points. So they did well to get there. But anyway, stats first.
Yeah, so we had 2 tries for New South Wales, 3 to Queensland. 1 out of 2 conversions played, 2 out of 3 for Queensland, and a missed field goal attempt. 80% completion played 86%. 36 out of 45 sets played 37 out of 43. 5 line breaks for both teams. 43 tackle busts to New South Wales, 34 to Queensland. 9 offloads from both teams and 1 forced dropout for New South Wales. 378 tackles played, 379. 2 ruck infringements against New South Wales, 4 against Queensland. 4 penalties conceded to 3. 10 errors by New South Wales, 8 by Queensland. Cook made 54 tackles, Cotter with 51. Tedesco made 291 running metres, and Munster made 198. Sims missed 4 tackles, made 25. Junior Paulo missed 3 and made 18. And Cleary missed 3 and made 20. Gagai missed 9 and made 16. Cotter missed 5 and made 51. And Ponga missed 3 and made 3.
Where should we start? I'll start with an apology first of all, and then
Right.
you can go have. Oh, Ollie looked like you were about to get into that, but I would like to publicly apologise to Ruben Cotter for ever doubting him. Bloke's a machine. He was absolutely outstanding, and we'll get into that further. But I may have been harsh on him the other night, so I'll go on record again, as I seem to be doing a lot of apologising to Ruben. What a warrior!
Well, I think you'll actually find he's a cowboy, but I'll allow you.
Oh,
Anyway, I'm overtired, boys. Anyway,
we all are, I think.
well, I wouldn't say the game necessarily was decided by him alone, but I'd say probably the standout performer in this one was Cameron Munster. For me, he had his hand in everything, in attack and defence. He ran the ball well. It was just across the board, just a dominant performance, in my view. And yeah, Ruben Cotter and I'd say Patrick Carrigan, two really, really good Origin debuts. And I'd say across the board, there weren't really any horrible performance from Queensland. A couple of quiet performances, maybe you could say. And on the New South Wales side of things as well, whilst I agree, I don't think New South Wales ever really looked like winning. It's odd because the game only ended 16 points to 10, but Queensland just seemed to have the momentum and just be that one step above for the majority of the contest. But still, I thought Jack Whiten for the majority of the game was one of New South Wales' best players. He's definitely someone everyone had an eye on.
We probably should apologise to him too, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's apologise to everyone while we're at it. But I think they stuck with their guns. We all sort of thought Freddie was going to make the change that Stephen Crichton would come on and we'd have Whiten starting off at the bench, but stuck with him. And I think Whiten, I don't know if Whiten secured his spot for game 2. Maybe Katoni Staggs hasn't, in hindsight, thinking about it with Latrell Mitchell coming back, but
he's injured too.
Yeah, of course. He certainly didn't do himself any misfortunes, I'd say, Jack Whiten, when it comes to potentially being picked in the future. But overall, I just think Queensland was that one step above, led by Cameron Munster, and some great performances from their debutants.
Barney, give us your summary.
Got the whole spiel going on here. Yeah, so I thought New South Wales were actually on top for the first 20 minutes. They looked to me to be the winning in the middle of the field, especially with the lines, with the play the ball speed. They seemed to be, they had some good play the ball speed. They had a direction where, as I mentioned in the preview, I thought they were going to target Gagai early, and they did. They ran White directly at him quite a bit in that first 20 minutes of the game, and then seemed to go away from it a little bit there for whatever reason. There's obviously the nice first try to Whiten on the left-hand side there, and New South Wales, I thought, were convincingly on top for that first 10 to 15 minutes. There's a few big changes in momentum around the 20-minute mark in this game. The first one was Cameron Murray standing in the line as Junior Paulo went back through the middle, and obviously New South Wales were denied a try there. If he'd taken 2 or 3 more steps, he would have been outside of the line of the defence, and Carrigan would have attempted to make the tackle, but I can't see him stopping Paulo from there. And there's a the game's now 10-0 instead of 4-0, and then another the first contentious call of the evening with the forward pass from Tupu back to Teddy, which was denied another try. And again, there could have been a massive swing in this game. It could have been 16-0 come half time, but it wasn't. Try was pulled up a couple of minutes later. Beautiful piece of work from Cobbo down the right-hand side there with the kick back in for Gagai, and that was the first half, realistically. The other big mentions in that first half were when Carrigan came onto the field after 15 minutes when Papali went off. He, on his own, lifted the play the ball speed of Queensland immeasurably. One man, you don't really realistically think one man can change the speed of the play ball as much as he did, but his involvement was massive. His leg speed was fantastic, and he was getting quick play the balls every time he went into the New South Wales defensive line. And then when RCG came off and Paulo did come on, I thought they lost a little bit there. Paulo did have 1 or 2 really nice explosive touches of the ball, but he didn't do it anywhere near as much as he needed to.
For an alleged 10 out of 10 ball player, his first 3 passes all went to ground too, by the way.
Yeah, and at the end of the game, I think he only ended up getting about 30 minutes because I'm pretty sure the coach saw that he wasn't getting involved anywhere near as much as he should, and
But
he is a fraction
I
of a
don't think we said it on
liability
air. We'll finish the game
defence.
anyway. Let's bag plays later. Finish the game summary.
And yeah, he is a little bit of a lateral defensive issue in the line there. But they were sort of the three key takeaways. Oh, sorry, and then Harry Grant comes on, and the speed of the play of the ball gets even quicker. And once I mentioned Queensland really would rely on the speed of the play of the ball in this game, and once they started to dominate the speed of the play of the ball, they just ran all over New South Wales. About halfway through the second half, New South Wales' speed of the play of the ball basically came to a stop. They were so slow in their play of the balls. Obviously, Queensland were dominating the ruck, and they were laying over the defenders, over the attackers, but they were allowed to do that. And it was New South Wales that ably assisted them in doing it by running one out for a good 40 minutes of this game, allowing Queensland to put 2 and 3 and 4 players into a tackle. And when you've got 3 and 4 players in a tackle, you can basically set them up, wrestle with them before they hit the ground, control which way they're facing when they're on the ground, and then you get the slow peel on top of it. So it just killed New South Wales play the ball speed. And as I mentioned, Queensland's got quicker and quicker. And they looked, there was a period there for about 20 minutes, either side of the Cherry Evans try, where they looked dangerous every time they had the ball. Like they looked like they were an opportunity of scoring points. And they were making massive meters and pulling New South Wales defensive line apart. The New South Wales halves just didn't seem to, they had a structure and they played to that structure consistently, but that led to them being pretty ineffectual, and they didn't seem they seemed very unsure what to do if that structure broke down at any point, which it did consistently on that left-hand side. They would have been better off just running second rowers and whitening that gay guy in the halves, but they seemed to want to shift to the edges, and when they couldn't get there, they sort of ran out of steam and ran around in circles. And on the other hand, Queensland's halves really didn't run the ball unless they saw an opportunity to run the ball. They just gave it to their back rowers and their centres early and let them do the work. And as soon as they saw a gap, Munster was off and running, or DCE was running back through the middle of the ruck on the side of that scrum. So it was a marked difference between the performances of the halves. I thought Queensland looked really aggressive, athletic, and pretty confident in what they were doing, considering they had 2 or 3 blokes on the bench at one point that were injured and didn't look like coming back. And New South Wales looked pretty passive and looked like they were just going through the motions at different times. They're very, very structured and didn't seem to want to work outside of that structure either, apart from Tedesco when he tried his ass off in that last 20, 30 minutes and was probably the majority of the reason that we're making good meters and getting back close to the Queensland try line. But yeah, Sims and Staggs probably played their way out of a New South Wales jersey, I would imagine in the second game. I'm not sure they'll retain their positions. Murray should be starting and probably playing 80 minutes, especially when Yo comes off the field for 20 minutes or half an hour. Already mentioned Paulo. I thought RCG was average. Martin did a decent job, but he needs to do more with the ball. And I know you can make 50-odd tackles, but when you only have four hit-ups, and one of them he actually split them as well, but I'd like to see him get the ball a little bit more. As I mentioned, run at Gay Guy and their halves, but for Brian Tuo and Luai did a decent enough job. Cleary's kicking game was a real big disappointment in this one. I don't think I've seen him kick this poorly for
It would be lucky to be called average, I think.
Yeah, he basically put up midfield bombs for the majority of the game, and they weren't the spiraling torpedo ones either. They were just sort of 1 or 2 floated around a little bit, but they were generally just end on end straight up and down the field. And I thought Cook was pretty good, but when he did run, and he did make some inroads through the middle of the ruck, but there was nobody there for support.
Yeah.
So he ended up having to stop on his run around in circles, and made him look like a bit of a goose at times. But to me, New South Wales' biggest problem is their biggest point of attack, I thought, was going to be short ball playing and second phase play, and they didn't seem to want to set up for second phase play at all. There was no support runners either, so you can't play short balls when there's no one there to take a pass. So you just end up running into the line and get smacked. But yeah, obviously the best players were Teddy, Whiten, and Haas for New South Wales. But there was a great effort from Queensland, especially with all their injuries. Papali'i didn't get as many minutes as I thought he would. but he was decent enough out there for the 20-odd minutes he was out there. Nanai as well with the injury. Didn't have a lot of impact, but he did really well to get back out there. I thought he'd broken his foot when he went off the field, but I thought Coates was probably their most uninspiring player and then got injured as well. So I'm not sure what happens after that. But again, Tino and Kafusi were really good. Until I thought Gagai was probably below par in this game. He had a pretty average game considering what he normally does for Queensland. But Cotter and DCE were massive for Queensland. DCE's kicking game was obviously the best kicking game out there. He had a really good night with the boot. Cobbo and Holmes were fantastic. I thought Holmes at one point looked like the best player on the field until Munster started doing his thing. Holmes looks as fit and as strong as I've ever seen him. And then you've already mentioned Carrigan and Munster. They were just ridiculously good in this game. They had 10 out of 10 performances, the pair of them.
Yeah, they you've mentioned the step up in tempo. It was sort of they went up 2 gears because Carrigan got to play the ball going, and then a fresh Harry just started running every chance he got, and the game went from a quick game to an even quicker game, and it was very exciting to watch. And I just thought Queensland came across as look. I think you got to give Billy Slater credit. He knew what he was doing in picking the team, and his game plan made more sense. And I think Fittler's did. I think you're right. I think Fittler came into having a very structured game plan, which probably would work as a club coach. But you're playing in the fastest game or you're at such tempo, and the least structured players were the ones that came to the fore. They're back in that game when you got the bloke who's completely off his head with talent, but Munster was just doing what he wanted. He was running when he wanted to, kicking when he wanted to, and was just outstanding. So who else haven't I mentioned? I think you're being generous to some of the New South Wales players, to be honest. I thought Teddy was fantastic. And the only one he didn't mention, I would not be dropping Tupou off that effort. He made some enormous meters. He was very good.
27 hit-ups or something.
Yeah, 20. He had the most hit-ups for the game, 211 run meters, and they were all strong, real strong carries. So the back five were all, I think, good enough.
Probably overplayed it a little bit, to be honest. They probably could have used a little bit of that short ball playing in the middle to try and create a few opportunities. But...
yeah. I wonder if structure killed Luai. Maybe Luai needs to be just allowed to roam and
it always seems to.
And just say to him, if you get the ball, just make up some shit. And we'll
just sort of sticks to that left edge and doesn't come. I'd like to see him come back into the middle occasionally and
obviously
work the other side as well.
The design of Cleary, and we know Penrith have the best up tempo structured game in the comp, but Queensland picked a running spine, 4 very quick running two running halves. Obviously Ponga, who looked very dangerous at times, and Harry Grant, and the up tempo suited him, and they were more mobile. I agree with you. Curry Murray should not be coming off the field. I think we talked about off-field. We mentioned on there last time, but Junior Paulo's had about half a dozen good games in 2 years now. He's there on reputation. I would bring Jake back. He'd do as good a job and would make 50 tackles on top of it.
Yep.
And they could really have used Angus Crichton in this game. Someone with a bit of size.
Him on that left edge and
and left
ran
him
next to White the whole time.
100%, because Tarek Sims, who was okay in the first stint, but he was a non-factor after the first 15 minutes, whereas Crichton would have been a very scary partner in crime for White. And I would have thought, I did suggest that we would see Stephen Crichton just playing this sort of nothing role, and that's what ended up happening.
Yep.
But maybe that was a result of Whiten being so good. So we can't really be too upset about that, but I think you've covered off everyone else. It was a scare. Like there was one time, would have been 20 minutes ago, I'd say, where Queensland had a scrum on a 10-metre line, and they had the goalpost shot, and they had the scrum set up, Queensland scrum set up, and you had Ponga standing on one side and Munster on the other, and you just thought, whichever way they go, we're a bit fucked here, because it just felt like there was that much momentum with them. It was a scary sight. You got anything else to add, Oliver?
Nothing really in particular. I'd have to say we covered it off pretty well overall. Round
Okay,
of
thank
applause all round.
And the other thing I've got to say, if you're picking the Australian team tomorrow, there's a little fuckload of Queenslanders in it.
Yeah, there would. Absolutely, there would. Yeah, the biggest disappointment for me was just the support play from New South Wales. They just went one out for the majority of the night, and it cost them dearly at the end of the game. But
Yeah, I think they. I can't say they're ambushed, but I don't know if they expected to be that up tempo. I thought they could. I think they thought they could set and structure and.
surely, how hard is it to fucking get a message out to them and go, "Fucker, support the ball"? Like there was nobody following the ball apart from Tedesco.
Again, that's where Luai could have roamed.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's in the books. They're going to go to Perth, which I suggested the other night would suit Queensland. So
on the back of what we just saw,
do.
yeah, I can't disagree with you either.
So very interested to see how New South Wales struck back and whether they stick to their guns or it's a very traditional thing for New South Wales to make 6 changes. But we'll see what happens, eh? We're doing the Ollie Lewis, are we? I think we probably agree 3 points Munster and then 2 points Carrigan, 1 Grant.
I had Holmes or Cotter. I thought Holmes was tremendous, but he saved 2 tries as well as he was a good part of anything down that other side as well.
The kick behind the line he's pounced on and
another kick
on the field would have got
it. Behind the line later as well, in the middle of the field. Where
hey, look, I think Val's been an unsung hero in this game, so why not? Unless you want to rubber stamp anything else, Oliver.
Look, I'm just trying to decide whether to go Tariq Sims, Damien Cook, or Katoni Staggs. So I guess we're at a stalemate and we'll just go with Valentine Holmes.
Okay. Honourable mention to Jack Whiten, who was New South Wales best, I thought, and Teddy, who just tried tried his ass off. We saw enough of his
ass. Had to be right up there as well. Yeah, didn't we? Yeah. The drawstrings.
Can we just... I think we should give the brace from Origin to whoever made the Blues shorts because we saw a lot of arseholes on the field. Not just Teddy's. Every set, someone seemed to pop out. So if we have those fixed for next time, it'd be lovely as well.
Wouldn't hurt.
Or not if you're a
if you're internet.
Yeah.
Too. But anyway, that's Origin in the books. No other news you want to talk about, or should